and I wasn't diagnosed until the age of 2, and that is also when I got my first hearing aids. And if it wasn't for my mom, who took me to speech classes and to speech therapy, I wouldn't be able to speak like I do today.
It's best to use that hearing aid as much as possible. It also then gets your brain to relearn what different, or for a child's perspective, learn for the first time what certain sounds mean. Not only environmental sounds, but also speech sounds. Connecting what that S sound means in context of a word.
When kids can't hear, they first of all miss out on incidental learning. So for most kids, they hear all day long. They hear their parents talking in the other room, they overhear the TV, they hear conversations happening outside of them. Students with hearing loss don't hear all of those things. So a lot of times, first of all, it affects their vocabulary, it affects their knowledge base, because things actually have to occur right in front of them.
I guess what it was like to have hearing loss as a kid, it was kind of, it was hard because you missed a lot of things, especially socially, because when you can't hear everything, oftentimes you infer things, and especially if you have hearing aids that aren't quite up to date, you might not catch a lot of things, and so when you infer things, you might infer things incorrectly, and you might say something that's completely out of context, and that's a really embarrassing situation.
What is more embarrassing? Answering someone very inappropriately? You know, if they ask a certain question, you're just way out there with your answer because you thought that they said something else. That's pretty embarrassing. I think that would be a lot less embarrassing than having a little thing behind the ear that makes it so that you're answering correctly.
It was hard as a kid because it was hard socially. It was harder for me to learn in class because I had trouble hearing the teacher.
For children who are trying to learn language, going through spelling tests, it can affect their ability to spell correctly because they're not hearing it correctly. It can affect their ability to pronounce words correctly. So we see a lot of problems with speech production with those who have some hearing loss.
Hearing loss can affect kids in all aspects of their life. It affects them academically, socially, emotionally. When kids can't hear, it can be kind of a domino effect if they don't get the kind of help that they need. So it really does affect their whole lives if things are not in place to help them out.
A lot of times manifests itself more in the understanding of what's being said, not necessarily being able to hear people loudly enough, just the ability to understand one word versus another, one very similar word versus another word.
Kids with hearing loss actually have been shown to be bullied more than your average student, just because they're different. Kids tend to pick on them because of their hearing loss, their hearing aids, or their equipment. And if the student's not well prepared to deal with that, then we can have some real social issues.
I think in some instances I feel held back because I have hearing loss, because especially when I was young, not so much now, but especially when I was younger, it was kind of against the social stigma to have hearing aids. I got bullied a lot, I got harassed a lot. It was a very hard time for me to make friends, to interact socially.
It's hard to make them feel good about themselves, and especially when they just want to be the same as everybody else. They don't want to look different, they don't want to sound different, they don't want to act different. And by wearing their hearing aids, sometimes they feel like they're different than everybody. And so a lot of times when they get older, the social part of it becomes more important, and they choose not to wear their hearing aid. And I tell them, you know what, if you don't use your hearing aids, it doesn't affect me. I have a career, you know, I don't need to, you know, go on to college or anything at this point in time, so it doesn't affect me, but it affects you. And you need to keep the goals for your life in front of you when you're trying to make those decisions about whether you wear hearing aids or don't wear hearing aids, or do the things that you need to do to advocate for yourself in school. Kids can help themselves by not caring what other kids say. They have to feel good that the kids that do those kinds of things and say those kinds of things aren't the ones that should be their friends. And they should find those people that care about them and know that they have a hearing loss and don't care. If a student can, you know, feel good enough about themselves to ignore those kinds of things, that's the best thing they can do. And also having that peer support, and having teachers that don't tolerate that. You know, there's so much in place for bullying that, you know, that needs to be addressed and stopped, to help our kids feel better about who they are as well, and not get bullied about being hearing impaired.
In some instances, yes, I felt held back, but in other instances, I felt like I got a whole new perspective on the world, and because I saw how much of a difference hearing makes. The difference between hearing and not hearing, it's a whole different world that is hard to comprehend sometimes.
In hearing loss, there's nothing that's just.
I had one student that they were about ready to retain them in a grade, so they wanted the child to repeat the grade. And I figured out that the child had a hearing loss, and we eventually got equipment on them, and we did not retain the child, let them go on to the next grade, and with the equipment that they had, ended up doing fine and you know, caught up to her peers. As soon as we get kids hearing, they really catch up well. And I have a lot of older kids that once they figure out that what's important to them and what their life goals are, if they finally decide to wear their equipment and do the things they need to do, overcome a lot of the difficulties that they had earlier.
When I don't have my hearing aids in, the only way I can still hear sound, but I can't distinguish words. I can't distinguish what kinds of sounds it is. Oftentimes all I can tell is whether it's a loud sound or a soft sound, and whether it's a high pitch or a low pitch.
I think of a hearing loss for some kids as it's like a keyboard with 8 or 10 broken keys. So if you don't have any S's, T's, F, K's, P's, and you type out something, a message, and you look at it and there's bits and pieces missing. That's how a lot of our students with hearing loss hear. It's not that they are deaf and they don't hear anything, it's that they have enough hearing loss that they hear a lot of what's being said, but they miss a lot. And with some of my kids who are struggling with that, I will write out a sentence and I'll leave out the S's, the T's, the P's, the sounds that they don't hear when they're not using their hearing aids, and ask them to read that, and they can't. And I think it makes them realize that, yes, I hear people talking, but maybe I don't understand everything that everybody is saying. Parents, just be as supportive as you can be toward your child and make them feel good about who they are. And that a hearing loss is not a barrier to doing whatever you want to do. It's just a difference that you have, and if their expectations are high for the child, and they expect them to wear their hearing aids every day, then we've got a much better situation. As far as teachers, when I have students with significant hearing losses, I always talk to the teachers and give them accommodations that I ask them to consider in the classroom. There are a lot of people that can help that academic piece, but it's very difficult to make somebody feel good about themselves. And I can't control what happens, nor can the teachers control what happens outside of the classrooms as far as what kids are saying to our deaf and hard of hearing kids. And so I would say that that's probably one of the biggest barriers that I face, especially with my older kids wanting to continue to use their equipment and do the kinds of things that they know are helpful for them. They don't want to sit in the front seat anymore, front row anymore. They want to sit in the back, and understand that. But it's that social emotional piece that makes them want to not do the things they know are good for them.
Trust the audiologist, trust the professionals, because they will be able to help you deal with your hearing loss. They have the tools to help you.
What I usually tell kids is, you know what, hearing loss is one of those things we can deal with. It doesn't restrict your life. It doesn't dictate what you can and cannot do in your life. And that it is just something that makes you unique. When I have little kids, if I find a hearing loss, I'll go talk to their class, and I talk to the kids about how we are all special in different ways. We all have different hair color and eye color, and different parts of our body work differently. And some people need glasses for if their eyes don't work good. Some kids need a wheelchair if their legs don't work good, and some kids need hearing aids if their ears don't work good. And it's not a big deal. It's just something that makes you unique. And so it's easier with the little kids because they're more accepting, and it's easier to deal with at that time. With the older students, it's just, again, telling them, not a big deal. It is something we can at least deal with. There are a lot worse things that you could have that would restrict your life a lot more. But a hearing loss we can deal with. It's not fun. It's a pain sometimes, but you know what? You can do everything that your peers do, and you just need to feel okay that it's just part of who you are, and that you need to use your hearing aids, and you need to make a few accommodations for yourself and advocate for yourself.
I would tell someone who just got hearing aids or who just found out they have hearing loss to not worry about it. I mean, because hearing loss is something that you can overcome. It is a difficulty. It is something that you will struggle with, but it's something that you can live with. You can still do anything that a normal person can do. I mean, I have hearing loss, yet I am still in show choir. I still sing. I still dance. I can match pitch relatively well, and so I don't let my hearing loss bring me down.